What if I told you that the greatest library in human history wasn't destroyed by a single fire? That everything you think you know about Alexandria's end is wrong? Today we're uncovering the real reasons why humanity lost its greatest treasure trove of knowledge, the Library of Alexandria. For over 700 years, it stood as the crown jewel of human knowledge, home to works by Archimedes, Euclid, and countless others whose names are lost to time. But here's the thing. It didn't burn down in one dramatic night. The truth is far more complex, and frankly, more tragic. Let's dive into the 7 real reasons why we lost this irreplaceable institution. Reason number 1. The money dried up. By the time Rome conquered Egypt in 30 BCE, the Ptolemaic dynasty had been funding the library for nearly 300 years. But the Romans? Julius Caesar and his successors saw Alexandria as a provincial outpost, not the center of learning it once was. Imperial funds that once flowed freely to acquire scrolls and pay scholars were redirected to Roman projects. Without proper funding, the library couldn't maintain its collection, acquire new works, or even pay its staff. Think of it like a university losing its endowment. The buildings might still stand, but the institution slowly withers away. By the 1st century CE, the library was already a shadow of its former self. Reason 2. Religious transformation. When Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire under Constantine, everything changed. The library represented pagan learning, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy that often contradicted Christian doctrine. In 391 CE, Bishop Theophilus of Alexandria led attacks on pagan temples, including the Serapeum, which housed part of the library's collection. But here's what's crucial. This wasn't about destroying knowledge for the sake of it. Early Christians were creating their own centers of learning, focused on theological texts rather than scientific ones. The library didn't burn overnight. Instead, Christian scholars gradually replaced pagan texts with religious manuscripts. It was cultural displacement, not destruction. Reason 3. Mother Nature doesn't care about your scrolls. Alexandria sat on the Mediterranean coast, facing constant threats from earthquakes, tsunamis, and flooding. The Great Earthquake of 365 CE devastated the city, and the library's buildings weren't immune. But the real killer was papyrus decay. Ancient scrolls weren't built to last forever, without constant copying and preservation efforts. Remember, no funding. These irreplaceable texts literally crumbled to dust. Imagine if every digital file had an expiration date and you couldn't afford backup servers. That's exactly what happened to thousands of scrolls containing lost works of science, literature, and philosophy. Reason 4. The scholars left town. When Constantinople became the new Rome in 330 CE, it created a massive brain drain. The Byzantine Empire actively recruited Alexandria's best minds, offering better pay and resources. Why stay in a declining provincial library when the new capital was building fresh institutions? Top scholars, mathematicians, and philosophers packed up their personal collections and headed north. This wasn't just about individual careers. When scholars left, they took their knowledge and their books with them. The library lost both its human capital and significant portions of its collection to what was essentially academic poaching. Reason 5. Alexandria became a war zone. Between 619 and 629 CE, the Persians occupied Egypt, followed by the Arab conquest in 641 CE. Each conquest brought new rulers with different priorities. But here's the key. These weren't deliberate attacks on learning. The Persians and Arabs actually valued scholarship. However, repeated sieges, occupations, and political upheavals made it impossible to maintain a major library. Books were scattered, scholars fled, and administrative systems collapsed. It's like trying to run a research university during a civil war. Even with the best intentions, the institution suffers. Reason 6. The world moved on. By the 7th century, intellectual focus had shifted. Islamic scholars were developing new mathematical concepts. The Chinese were advancing printing technology. And European monasteries were preserving different types of knowledge. The library's collection, focused on Greek and Egyptian learning, became less relevant to contemporary scholars. It's not that the knowledge was unvaluable. It's that new civilizations were creating their own centers of learning with different priorities. Think of it like how modern universities have largely moved away from teaching Latin and Greek. The knowledge isn't worthless, but it's no longer central to contemporary education. And reason 7, the most important one. We love dramatic stories more than boring truth. The idea that the library burned in one catastrophic fire is compelling, but it's fiction. Whether you blame Julius Caesar, Christian zealots, or the Arab conquest, you're buying into a myth. The reality? The Library of Alexandria died slowly, over several centuries, from neglect, changing priorities, and natural decay. It's far less dramatic than a single villain torching humanity's greatest treasure, but it's what actually happened. This myth persists because we need someone to blame for such a massive loss. But the truth is more mundane and more tragic. We simply stopped caring enough to preserve it. So there you have it. 7 reasons why we really lost the Library of Alexandria. Not through villainous destruction, but through the slow erosion of funding, changing priorities, natural decay, and human neglect. The lesson here isn't just about ancient history. It's about how we preserve knowledge today. Libraries, universities, and cultural institutions don't disappear overnight. They fade away when societies stop investing in them. What do you think? Are we making the same mistakes with our modern institutions? Let me know in the comments below.